Welcome back to Dee's Roads. I'm Dee. Hope everybody had an amazing holiday season and is gearing up for a wonderific, awesome new year 2026. We'll also talk about weighing the pros and cons of car camping equipment, everything from bed setup to electricity to how you cook to the toilet and everything in between. So the first one I'm going to talk about is power stations, right? Thinking about how much electricity are you really going to need? And that really all depends on the devices that you're trying to run. For example, when I first started out car camping, I didn't have any devices that I needed to run as far as using electricity. All I needed to do was make sure my iPad was charged and my iPhone was charged. That's it. I relied on gas for cooking and I didn't need anything else. Oh, yes, I did. I still had my fairy lights. I had my fairy lights and I just relied on one of those really small portable power banks that are specifically used for doing things like that, charging phones, charging iPads in an emergency type of situation. So that's all I relied on at first. That's all that I needed because I didn't want to just rely on plugging into my car as I was driving. When I was sleeping at night, I wanted to be able to plug in my devices and make sure when I woke up in the morning, they were fully charged. Now, another thing that you might consider is a portable power station, something like a Bluetti or a Jackery or a EcoFlow. I think it's called the EcoFlow River, like a smaller portable power station. I personally have used the Bluetti EB3A. Probably I bought that about a year into car camping. That really took care of everything that I needed. So at some point, Bouge RV sent me a refrigerator to review. And I was so glad to have the Bluetti EB3A power station. That way I could run the actual refrigerator that they sent me. If I would not have had that, the only thing I could have done was plug it into the car when I was driving. And then of course my food would get warm when I'm just sitting. So that little small portable power bank really helped out a lot. And it also made sure I could still run my lights. I could still charge my phone, charge my iPad, and then also use those low watt kitchen appliances to cook my food, like those little Dash mini cookers and just low watt appliances to make sure that I could cook without necessarily having to use gas. The only problem is that if you're going to do that over and over again, and especially if you're going on a longer trip, you need to make sure that you have a way to charge up your portable power station, whether that's driving around and plugging the power station into your car to let it recharge, whether you have solar or maybe you're going into a library or a cafe to recharge. So when you purchase these things, you really want to think about how are you going to recharge, especially if it's a smaller power station that's not going to last you very long, especially if you have things like a refrigerator and you're cooking with electricity. Now, another option that I want to call out, Dr. Prepare sent me this Renogy high capacity power bank. And as you can see here, this has 276.48 watt hours. Now, this is another really great option that you don't have to spend a lot of money on. This will make sure that you can keep your cell phone charged, your iPad or tablet charged, your refrigerator running, and you can also make sure that if you use a CPAP, you're always covered. So especially if you use a CPAP, this really comes in handy because not only do they give you, of course, the charging cords to make sure that you can charge your power station and the USB-C cord, but they also give you 3 distinct CPAP plugins. So this one right here is specifically for the Rest Med AirSense 10 or the Air Curve, Air Curve 10. So that already comes with the product. If you have there's also a cord for the Rest Med Air Mini and S11. All right. And then you also have your Philips Dream Station 2. So all of these come with this power station, in addition to your normal charging mechanism and the USB-C. So right off the bat, I think that sets it apart from a lot of other portable power stations that are small but mighty. Another thing that I really like about this product is they give you a little carrying case to keep it. So it's nice and discreet. So if you do need to go into a cafe or to a library to charge this thing, it's very discreet. Okay, so I'm going to open it up here. Oh. And take it out of here. All right. So here's what we're working with. It also has a magnetic charger. So there's a magnetic charger right here on the top of it as well. And then as you can see, a flashlight. I don't want to blind you. I don't want to blind you guys right now, so I'm not going to turn on the flashlight, but there are several different modes with this flashlight, just like you see on a lot of other different power stations. So in addition to your magnetic charger, your flashlight for safety purposes, you also have your DC 12 volt outlet. So basically your cigarette outlet. Another thing that I think sets this apart is that, I hope you can see this here, all of the inputs here and the outputs all have covers. So you don't have to worry about dirt, dust, grime getting into those. That is one thing that I do not like about my Bluetti EB3A, that it does not come with those port covers. You also have a DC in out. That's what this blue one here is for. So there's your DC in out. And then you also have a USB out and a USB-C out. And out just means that it's outgoing power from the power station. And then you also have the USB-C in out that you can use to charge. So you have basically the DC in out to charge, and then you also have the USB-C in out to charge. When I first started, I wish I would have had this, because this would have lasted me so much longer than my little tiny portable power station that I always used to use to make sure that my phone, my iPad, whatever, my lights were working, that my fan was staying charged. All right, so as I hook this up, I'll talk about the next one. So the next one that you could possibly consider for, your power needs is if you get one of those LifePo 4 batteries that is not a portable power station, it's just a battery. Just keep in mind that if you do that, you want to make sure that you're getting an inverter that matches the amp. I think the amps and the volts and the watts and all that stuff for your specific battery. Say it. But also keep in mind, if you go that route, you may also need to get a solar charge controller. And then you also need something, if you're not going to be using solar, you also need something to charge that battery. Now, if you're part-time and you don't have a problem carrying it in and out of your rig, that's a good option. That's what I do right now, because I wasn't comfortable hooking up, and I'm still not comfortable hooking up the solar controller. So what I did was I bought just a little portable shore power connection for my battery. That way I could charge at home. Now, of course, you could still charge, I guess, at like cafes and libraries if you're on the road. It probably just won't be as discreet. And solar, for me, is a must-have, in my opinion. If you do have a power station, even if you do have one of those batteries, but especially if you have a power station, I would definitely say invest in solar. I have two different solar panels. So I have one of those, I have this right here. This is a Nod Solix 100 watt solar panel that, flips out or whatever, and I can put it outside. It's nice and compact. I got this off of Amazon probably over a year ago. I don't think I've ever shown it on this channel, but I think it was like 70 bucks. But again, it's really going to come down to, what do you really need to power in your car camping journeys? If you don't have a fridge, if you're not cooking with electricity and you're relying on gas, you really don't need a huge power station at all. unless you want to use electricity to cook and to keep your food refrigerated. So since we're talking about food and refrigeration, why not talk about ways that you can keep your food fresh or refrigerated? I would say if you're going to buy a refrigerator, know that you're going to have to buy a power station. So you're putting out more money. And if that's something that's okay with you, then great, that's good. But just know that you can do car camping, especially on a part-time basis, without needing a refrigerator. I did it for, I want to say, at least 2 years before, maybe even 3. No, probably like 2 years before I even got a refrigerator. And the only reason I had that refrigerator is because it was given to me. I did not purchase that. So you want to consider, if you are going to buy a refrigerator, do you have enough space and do you have enough power? Is it worth sacrificing that space and the extra cost for refrigerated foods? And depending on your budget, how far you're traveling, like how far out are you with no access to a grocery store or no way to get fresh food? You know what I mean? Like how much space is in your rig and how can you make that space work for you? If you're boondocking, will you have enough power to run that fridge? So those are all things that you want to consider before making the jump to buying a refrigerator. A lot of times I just use the cooler, and if I didn't feel like dealing with ice, I would just bring things on road trips that were perishable, like canned goods. You have your camping meals that you just add hot water to that you can use a gas stove for. So you don't need power for that either, or a fire. And then I would also bring fresh fruits and vegetables that did not need to be refrigerated. So there are a lot of ways around it without having to spend the money on a refrigerator and then the power station to go along with it. Okay, so since we're on the topic of that, let's kind of bring in the cooking options, right? So the ultimate question is electric. Do you want to use electric? Do you want to use gas? Do you want to use a combination of both? Or maybe you want to use none of those methods. Maybe, you can get by going to parks that have the grill set up or fire pits, and that's the way you cook. I would just say always have a backup for when the weather isn't so good and maybe you can't get a fire started. Always have a backup. So as far as electric options for car camping that are lower voltage, that would work with a lower watt power station. So you have something like a hot pot. You have your Joule kettle pot where you can boil water, you can make soups, you can make noodles, you can do eggs, you can do a lot of things in those different options. And then you can also have something like a Hot Logic or similar. I have the cheaper version of the Hot Logic. I've had this for years and it's worked just fine. I like this again because I can plug it into this little power station here. I can also plug it into my car, so I don't necessarily need to have another power source. So maybe if I made something at home and I wanted to warm up as I'm driving to my location, then I can do that. Now, another option is gas. So with gas, you have a lot of different gases that you could choose from. You have the butane stoves that you get at Walmart or, Target, wherever, Amazon. And then you also have like those little portable, collapsible stoves. Something that you want to keep in consideration when you're using gas is, depending on whether you're using propane, butane, isobutane, there's a lot of different gases out there. And depending on the elevations that you're at and the temperatures that you're at, they may not perform as well as others. All right, so we're still in the kitchen here. So let's talk sink options. When I first started, I had a little plastic container with a lid on it, and that's what I used as my sink. That's what I used to wash my hands, wash my dirty dishes, wash my body. It was a very cheap solution. It worked very well. I would just dump my gray water in an area where you're allowed to dump gray water. Sometimes I would just dump it in the grass. Sometimes I would take it into a bathroom, a restroom, a public restroom with me. I've seen a lot of people also use collapsible bowls. Those are really great options too. IKEA has good options. Of course, you can get those things on Amazon. You might even try something like Dollar Tree or Harbor Freight. Now, of course, you'll see some people have an actual functional sink where you have the gray water hooked up and you have the fresh water hooked up. That's another awesome option. But just know that you don't have to go there first. You can start out with something as small as a collapsible bowl or just a little container that has a lid on it. So speaking of water, let's talk about water storage solutions. So for long-term solutions, you can use something like a 5-gallon or a 3-gallon, well, probably more like a 5-gallon jug. There are so many different options. You can get those at any of the big box stores. You can get them at REI. You can get them on, of course, Amazon. There are also 3-gallon jugs, 1-gallon jugs, 2-gallon jugs. There's a lot of different options. Something that I recently came across was something called the Dometic Go Hydration Station. It's like this cool little capsule. To me, it looks like a capsule, and it holds 2.9 gallons. So that's actually something that I've been looking at. Not sure if I want to invest that much money in it, but it's something that I've been looking at just as another option. And hey, you could always bring gallons of water, water bottles. It's not the best for the environment, but there are so many options. You don't have to limit yourself to just one. You can try different things and see what works best for you before you spend a lot of money on these fancier solutions that you might find you might not even need. I have this fancy sink that I got with my new car camping layout, and I've used it twice in 7 months. I thought it was the neatest thing. It's beautiful, but I just don't use it because I'm so used to using my little container or my collapsible bowls. So for bed options, so when I first started, I had 2 foam camping mats that I would use as my bed. And on a lot of my videos, I was like, you could do it. It's fine. I like more of a firmer surface, so it was fine for me. But I was going on a longer trip to Pisgah National Forest and to Savannah, Georgia. And so I said, you know what? I had taken out the seats right here, and it was a little bit bumpy with just those 2 foam camping pads. So I said, you know what? I'm going to splurge. And I ended up getting myself one of those tri-fold mattresses. I'm going to tell you right now, that's the best decision I've ever made with car camping. That mattress is so freaking comfortable. I don't remember off the top of my head the brand. I know it's like I think it's a 4-inch tri-fold mattress. I'll put it up on the screen or in the descriptions so you know what I'm talking about. But I'm telling you right now, I thought I slept good before in my little car camper. When I got that little tri-fold mattress, my car camping life changed. I would say, after looking back and, I've been car camping since 2021. It's about to be 2026, so almost 5 years. I would say don't sacrifice on your sleeping comfort. You want to make sure you can sleep comfortably. It's good for your health. It's good for your well-being. Just, if you're going to spend money on anything in your car camping build or no build, make sure it's a comfortable bed to sleep on. All right, and the last thing that I'm going to talk about is toilet solutions, because these are all things that we need, necessities, right? We need to be able to use the bathroom. We need to be able to stay hygienic using sinks and things like that. We need to be able to sleep. Sometimes we might need some power to keep ourselves connected, our everyday lives connected. And of course, we need food, but the last thing that we absolutely do need is a way to use the bathroom. When I first started, I had this idea of reusing a plastic coffee container to handle my business. That is still my preferred method to handle my business because I do have limited headroom in this vehicle. Now, when I had 2 of my seats taken out, I had a lot more headroom, which means I also had a lot more space. And in that case, I use a collapsible toilet, and I put my little coffee container inside of there, and everything was gravy great. I put puppy pads underneath my coffee container with bags inside the coffee container. I put puppy pads underneath the portable potty as well, just to make sure no yuckiness happened. But to me, that has been the easiest solution when when my seats are fully in here. I just use my coffee container. And maybe one day I'll show you how I do it. But basically, I just lay on my bed, like on my stomach, and then I put the coffee container right underneath me, and make sure the coffee container is in a space where I'm not going to make a mess all over the place. And then of course, you have the compostable bags, you have the poo powder, the poo gel, you have the pellets. There's so many different options out there that you can use for toilets. And really, it's all going to depend on your preference, what you like the best. I've seen the Boxio toilets. Those seem really cool. They're a little bit above my price range, but I feel like if I can make something like that DIY, it would probably be a really good solution. Okay, so that's all I have for this video. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. Let me know what your favorite solutions are for car camping. And if you haven't gone car camping yet and you're kind of thinking about it and you're getting your gear together, let me know what your thoughts are. Let's see, where is this at? Oh man, this is still at 99%. And it is keeping my food in here nice and toasty for later. So again, if you're interested in this Dr. Prepare Renogy high capacity portable power station, link below in the description for a discount, a special D's Roads discount. So far, so good. I cannot say enough good things about this little mini power station that packs a mighty, mighty punch. Thanks again for watching. Happy car camping. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.